On July 15th, 2022, the luxury Azure Pearl Resort in the Maldives was supposed to be a paradise. White sand, overwater villas, and a level of privacy only billionaires could afford. Instead, it became the center of one of the most disturbing missing persons cases in recent American history. At exactly 7:43 p.m., security cameras captured 18-year-old newlywed Lily Dawson stepping into the resort's beachfront restaurant. She looked pale, unsteady, like someone running on fear instead of energy. Her hands trembled as she approached a young waitress. She asked to borrow her phone just for one quick call. The audio was muffled, but 5 seconds of the recording survived. Sophie, he knows about the files, all of it. Then the call cut off. That was the last time anyone saw Lily alive. Her husband, 57-year-old hotel mogul Victor Hale, didn't report her missing until 36 hours later. 36 hours. For a man who claimed to love his young bride, he showed a stunning lack of urgency. When questioned by resort staff, he offered the same strange, flat response. She went for a midnight swim. She'll come back. But by the time police arrived, that explanation had already started to crumble. Inside Villa 247, the Villa Hale insisted on, tucked away at the far northern corner of the island, something felt wrong the moment investigators stepped in. Fresh paint, a strong chemical smell. Furniture moved slightly off alignment, like someone had dragged it during struggle. And then the details that chilled the blood. Faint streaks of diluted blood glowing under luminol in the bathroom. Strands of Lily's hair clumped inside the shower drain, and a broken fingernail wedged in the carpet near the bed frame. All covered up with the kind of precision you only see when someone has cleaned up a scene before. Even more suspicious were the resort's security logs. At 9:30 p.m., the night Lily vanished, every camera on the North Beach, every single one, went offline for exactly 78 minutes. At 10:45 p.m., a small unregistered boat approached the villa's private dock. At 2:30 a.m., security cameras in the staff corridor caught Hale's private team carrying 3 large, heavy bags toward the same dock. Bags that were never seen again. And yet, during all of this, Victor Hale remained completely calm. He spent the next morning on the phone with his legal team, ordered room service, and told management his wife was probably out clearing her head. But the version of Lily that witnesses described that evening was not a woman who wandered off willingly. She was scared. She was desperate. And she had tried, at the very last moment, to call her sister. Lily Dawson wasn't just any missing tourist. She was the teen bride of one of America's most powerful hotel tycoons, a man with political connections, money in every corner of the world, and a reputation polished so clean it almost blinded you. Their marriage, announced only weeks earlier, had been plastered across tabloids as a Cinderella story. The billionaire widower and the small-town girl. Beauty and generosity. Power and innocence. But beneath that glossy narrative was a reality Lily had been trying to expose, and that reality was the reason she knew she was in danger. The media exploded as soon as the story broke. Teen bride missing on honeymoon. Billionaire husband delays reporting wife disappeared. Maldives mystery in luxury paradise. But behind the headlines, investigators on the ground saw something different. A carefully orchestrated cover-up. A missing girl. A husband with everything to lose. And a villa that had been scrubbed so aggressively it practically confessed the truth. When Detective Naomi Rivers stepped off the plane days later, she sensed it immediately. The tension, the fear, the invisible wall of influence surrounding the case. She was a 20-year veteran, known for taking down predators who hid behind wealth and status. Hale's televised press conference was playing on a screen at the airport. The tearful husband begging for his wife's safe return. He sounded convincing. To most people, but not to Rivers. She recognized the performance. She'd seen too many men like him. Men who believed their money insulated them from consequences. By the time she reached Villa 247, the crime scene had already been staged to look pristine. But walls hold memories longer than people expect. Under the layers of fresh paint, under the cleaning chemicals, under the discarded excuses, the truth was still there, Blood in the places cleaner crews forgot, fingerprints on objects they didn't think to remove, and the unmistakable traces of a violent struggle. The disappearance of Lily Dawson wasn't a tragic accident. It wasn't a midnight swim gone wrong. It wasn't a story of a newlywed who needed space. It was the first thread in a web of darkness, corruption, and predatory power that had gone unchecked for over a decade. And when that thread was pulled, everything Victor Hale had spent years building would begin to unravel. Detective Rivers took one final look at the villa before turning to her team. "This isn't a missing person case," she said quietly. "This was a message, and we're going to find out who sent it." Lily Dawson grew up in a place most people forget exists, a quiet stretch of Maple Ridge, Tennessee, where gravel roads dust your shoes white and neighbors share the same tired worries year after year. The Dawson house sat at the very end of Willow Lane, a modest two-story home with peeling paint, a sagging porch, and a mailbox that leaned like it was tired of standing guard. But inside that house lived the one thing money couldn't buy: the bond between Lily and her twin sister, Sophie. Born 4 minutes apart, the girls were opposites in every way. Sophie was the quiet thinker, books, blankets, and soft lighting. Lily was the spark, big gestures, bright laughter, the kind of girl who made people feel like life had more color. But despite their differences, they moved through the world like two halves of the same heartbeat. If one cried, the other felt it. If one laughed, the other lit up. Their mother, Margaret, worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, cleaning houses during the day, stocking shelves at night. She used to joke that sleep was a hobby she couldn't afford. Their father, Robert, loved them in his own complicated, inconsistent way. But when the girls turned 14 and Margaret was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, he simply buckled. One morning, he left the house to grab a pack of cigarettes and never came back. His absence left more than an empty driveway. It left debt, grief, and a quiet sense of abandonment the girls carried like a bruise that never fully healed. Margaret tried to fill the void the best she could. She would sit at the small kitchen table, rubbing her thinning hair under a scarf, telling her daughters, "We're going to get through this. Dawson women don't break." But cancer eats more than bodies. It devoured their savings, their father, their stability. Some nights, Lily could hear her mother crying behind the bathroom door, muffling the sound with a towel. But Margaret always emerged with a smile, insisting she was fine. That was the environment Lily grew up in: love wrapped in fear, hope threaded with exhaustion. From a young age, she learned the kind of responsibility most adults struggle with. After school, she worked part-time at a small diner off Route 19, the Bluebird. She'd serve biscuits and gravy to truck drivers, refill coffee for elderly regulars, and bring home whatever leftovers the cook slipped into her bag. Every tip went into a jar labeled Mom's Treatment. It never filled fast enough. Despite the weight she carried, Lily excelled academically. Straight A's, on a roll. Teachers described her as driven, determined, the kind of student who refuses to give up. She studied late at night by the dim glow of a bedside lamp while listening to Margaret's soft breathing from the next room, unsure how many nights like that they had left. When she turned 14, a local community center hosted a county fair talent show with a small cash prize. Sophie urged her to enter. They borrowed a worn violin from their church. Its strings frayed, its wood scratched, but it produced music when paired with someone who played it with heart. Lily practiced until her fingers blistered, and when she performed, her playing silenced the room. Even the chatter at the concession stand stopped. Judges cried. She won the competition, and the prize money went straight to medical bills. It wouldn't be the last time Lily stepped onto a stage to help her family. Pageants became a way to survive, not to shine. She wore second-hand dresses, altered lovingly by Margaret. Some months, those prize checks were the difference between paying the electric bill or going without heat. Then came the acceptance letter from Vanderbilt University, partial scholarship. It should have been the happiest moment of her life. But the gap between the scholarship and the full tuition was too wide for a girl earning minimum wage at a diner while helping care for her sick mother. She kept the letter folded inside her backpack as a reminder that dreams could be close enough to touch and still impossibly far. Through it all, Sophie watched her sister work, sacrifice, and push herself harder than anyone should at 18. She worried Lily was burning too brightly in a life that kept demanding more from her. And then, on June 3rd, 2022, something happened that no one in town could have predicted. A private jet touched down at Nashville International Airport. Its flight path made no sense. Its passenger list included one name the world knew well: Victor Hale, the billionaire hotel magnate. He would later claim the route was routine. Investigators would later prove it was anything but. That day at the Bluebird, Lily wiped syrup off a table while humming under her breath, completely unaware that a man who built an empire out of taking what he wanted had just entered her orbit. A man who had been watching her picture from a small-town pageant ad. A man who, in a matter of months, would turn her life into a nightmare she never imagined. Lily Dawson had grown up fighting to survive poverty, illness, and abandonment. But nothing prepared her for the storm that was coming. To the outside world, Victor Hale was the kind of man people admired. He had the polished charm of a seasoned politician, the confidence of a CEO who'd built an empire from dust, and the public image of a philanthropic giant pouring millions into children's education and cancer research. Magazines called him America's hospitality king. Newspapers ran glowing profiles about his rags-to-riches story. And every time he stepped onto a red carpet with a much younger woman on his arm, the media treated it like a harmless eccentricity, another colorful chapter in the life of a self-made billionaire. But that was just the front of the house. The marble lobby, the polished brass, the decorative fountain meant to distract from what was happening in the basement. Behind his carefully crafted public persona, Victor Hale was something much darker, an apex predator who hunted in plain sight, protected by wealth, power, and a network of people whose paychecks depended on keeping his secrets buried. Victor was born in Boston, the youngest son in a chaotic, financially unstable family. He wasn't physically strong or particularly handsome, but he was observant in a way that made people uneasy. He learned early that charm could be weaponized, that confidence could disguise cruelty, and that the world opened its doors to men who smiled while hiding their intentions. He built his hotel empire the same way, slowly, meticulously, removing obstacles and outmaneuvering competitors. By the time he was 45, Hale International owned properties on 5 continents, and his reputation was ironclad. But while the public applauded his success, those closest to him whispered a different story, one that never made it to glossy magazines. His marriages were the first red flags. 5 wives, all significantly younger, all whose relationships ended abruptly and suspiciously. Diana, 1998 to 2000, died in a late-night highway accident. Elizabeth, 2001 to 2004, overdosed, though she had no history of substance abuse. Laura, 2005 to 2007, vanished during a cruise and was never found. Rachel, 2008 to 2010, resurfaced years later in Switzerland, living in isolation on monthly wire transfers. Michelle, 2011 to 2015, survived a home invasion she never spoke about again. Reporters who dug too deeply found their stories quietly reassigned. Investigators who questioned the inconsistencies were removed from their posts. Victims' families accepted settlements that came with airtight, non-disclosure agreements. If anyone saw the pattern, they didn't dare say it out loud. But the truth was simple. Victor Hale didn't marry women, he collected them. And when they became inconvenient, dangerous, or too aware of his darker appetites, he disposed of them with clinical precision. His predatory behavior fully evolved around 2015 when he realized something. Hotel chains offered a steady supply of young, financially struggling women who could be manipulated, isolated, and quietly erased. Receptionists, housekeepers, cashiers, interns, all carefully selected based on vulnerability. 3 cases stood out. Hannah Lee, Chicago, 2016. 19 years old. Receptionist. Promised a management retreat on one of Hale's private islands. Never returned. The investigation was closed in 4 days. Maria Vega, Miami, 2018. 20 years old. Housekeeper. Body washed onto a secluded beach. Ruled an accidental drowning. The detective who questioned the ruling was fired for misconduct. Amber Collins, Las Vegas, 2020. Barely 18. Customer service rep. Discovered irregular financial activity connected to offshore accounts. Told a friend she planned to expose it. 1 week later, she fell from her apartment balcony. Her suicide note was typed. Oddly professional for a grieving teenager. Her laptop was never recovered. Every case involved the same threads. Hale's presence, rapid closures, missing evidence, and families too intimidated or financially cornered to fight back. Behind the scenes, Hale built an entire ecosystem to feed his desires. Hotel managers were trained to identify candidates. Private doctors created false medical reports. Security staff monitored movements, communications, and escape attempts. Local police chiefs received generous donations. Politicians gained campaign funding. Everything had a price, and Hale was willing to pay it. His private islands, marketed as ultra-luxury retreats, were the heart of the operation. Tourists saw beaches and infinity pools. Victims saw underground rooms, soundproof hallways, hidden cameras disguised as decor, and docks built for discreet nighttime departures. Staff who worked there were paid triple the industry rate for one unspoken responsibility: silence. Hale was meticulous. He collected leverage the way art collectors gather masterpieces, compromising photos, financial records, recordings of private conversations. Each piece carefully stored, each one capable of destroying someone's life if they stepped out of line. Loyalty wasn't earned, it was enforced. And yet, despite how sophisticated his system was, Victor Hale had one fatal flaw. He believed he was untouchable. He believed every girl he selected would be silent, obedient, afraid. He never anticipated someone like Lily Dawson, someone who, despite being young and vulnerable, still possessed enough courage, intelligence, and sheer willpower to fight back. He didn't foresee that her sister, Sophie, would be relentless. He didn't expect Detective Naomi Rivers to be the one investigator he couldn't intimidate or bribe. Most of all, he didn't expect that the same tools he used to control his victims, recordings, documents, tracking, would ultimately become the very evidence that destroyed him. For years, Victor Hale hunted without consequence. But the moment he set his sights on Lily Dawson, his empire of shadows began its countdown to collapse. Victor Hale didn't rush. Predators like him never did. His first move was always generosity, the kind that looked selfless on the surface but was engineered with mathematical precision underneath. To everyone at the Bluebird Diner, it seemed harmless when he started showing up more frequently. He always chose Lily's section, always sat where he could watch her, always left a $100 tip for a cup of black coffee. Customers called it sweet. Sophie called it strange. At home, the Dawson family was drowning quietly. Margaret's cancer treatments were becoming more aggressive and expensive. The bills piled up so fast Lily couldn't keep track anymore. Their fridge was half empty most days. Their old sedan had started making a noise that warned it wouldn't survive another winter. The floorboards creaked, the lights flickered, and some nights the power shut off before Lily could finish her homework. That was when Victor struck his first real blow. One afternoon, Margaret received a phone call from Hale International's flagship hotel in Nashville. They offered her a position as guest relations manager, triple her usual salary, full health benefits, and flexible hours. Margaret cried out gratitude. She said it felt like a miracle. Lily felt relief, but Sophie felt something else. No one hands out miracles without asking for something in return. The next gift came 2 days later. A thick envelope slid under their door. Inside was a cashier's check covering the exact amount of Lily's remaining Vanderbilt tuition. Attached was a note written in Hale's elegant script. No strings attached. Let me help. But the truth was, every dollar he spent came with invisible strings, thin, delicate threads that began looping around Lily's life like a slow, deliberate noose. She resisted at first. She even confronted him at the diner. "I can't accept this," she said. He smiled with practiced softness. "It's nothing, Lily. You deserve a chance." And your mother, she deserves more time. That was the moment he discovered her deepest vulnerability, not the poverty, not the exhaustion, not the deferred dreams. It was Margaret Dawson, the mother Lily worshipped, the mother she feared losing more than anything. From that point forward, Victor used Margaret's health like a key that unlocked every door Lily swore she'd never open. Slowly, the balance shifted. Victor began requesting small favors, invitations to fancy business dinners, weekend trips to expose her to new environments, posing with him for a few discreet photos, meeting his business associates, wearing certain dresses he sent in beautifully wrapped boxes. Every favor was positioned as gratitude, and saying no began to feel impossible. Then came the phone, a sleek, latest model smartphone delivered to her door with a handwritten note, for school, and for safety. What Lily didn't know was that the device came pre-installed with tracking software, GPS logs, message monitoring, silent recording capabilities. It was his most powerful leash. The next phase of control was social isolation. Lily's friends noticed she stopped showing up to study groups. She quit her diner job because Victor insisted she deserved better. She skipped small-town hangouts, stopped answering calls, and gradually vanished from her own life. When Sophie confronted her, Lily broke down. He said, "If I keep working late, Mom's job could be reviewed. If I keep stressing myself, he might have to step in again. I don't know what to do." Sophie grabbed her hands. "He's manipulating you, Lil. You know this." But Lily's eyes were filled with something Sophie had never seen before, fear mixed with gratitude. "I can't risk losing the help. I can't risk losing Mom." Victor's next move sealed the trap. Margaret's insurance coverage suddenly hit review status. Scheduled treatments were paused. Calls went unanswered. Paperwork got lost. The timing wasn't a coincidence. It was strategic. Victor invited Lily to dinner that night. She went shaking. By dessert, he leaned forward and said calmly, "I can resolve the insurance issue, but I need you to trust me, Lily." Fully, she understood the message. He didn't need to say it out loud. From that moment, Lily's independence collapsed like a house of cards. Her college plans were quietly derailed. "Don't worry about Vanderbilt. I have better opportunities for you." He assigned a driver to her. He controlled her schedule. He dictated what events she attended, who she spoke to, where she went. Whenever she hesitated, he reminded her of the treatments he'd saved, the bills he'd erased, the security he provided. "After everything I've done for your family," he would say, "you should at least let me care for you." That sentence, care for you, wasn't affection. It was possession. By early September, Lily's world was no longer hers. She was living inside a system Victor had quietly built around her. Constant monitoring, subtle threats, staged generosity, orchestrated fear. It didn't feel like a relationship. It felt like a cage lined with velvet. And worst of all, Lily believed she had walked into it willingly. Not because she wanted Victor, but because she wanted her mother to live. In the end, Victor didn't have to force the cage closed. Lily locked herself inside, and he made sure she forgot where the door had ever been. The wedding in Aspen was the kind of event people assumed only existed in magazines. Snow-dusted pine trees, a glass-walled chapel overlooking the mountains, guests dressed in couture, a string quartet playing softly as photographers circled like bees around honey. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked enchanted. Everything looked like a fairy tale crafted for headlines and billionaire fantasies. But beneath the glitter, beneath the curated romance, beneath the champagne toasts and designer gowns, the truth was rotting quietly. Hidden under makeup, hidden under smiles, hidden under the unspoken threat that followed Lily Dawson like a shadow she could never outrun. From the moment Lily stepped out of the Blacktown car, the crowd gasped. She looked stunning in her lace-embroidered gown, but anyone paying close attention would have noticed the stiffness in her shoulders, the way she avoided Victor Hale's touch, the makeup artist's frantic attempts to conceal a faint discoloration along her collarbone. They would have noticed her fingers trembling as she adjusted her veil. But no one did, because people don't look for danger at a billionaire's wedding. They look for spectacle. Victor played the role of doting groom with the ease of a man who'd rehearsed it for decades. He greeted guests personally, shaking hands, boasting about the menu curated by a Michelin-starred chef. Whenever Lily drifted more than a few steps away, he gently, but firmly, guided her back to his side. The photographers framed it as romance. Sophie, watching from the shadows, saw the truth. Yes, Sophie was there, not as a guest. Victor had ensured her name was never added to the list, but she refused to stay away. She borrowed a uniform from the kitchen staff and blended in with servers carrying trays of champagne flutes. She moved quietly, observing her sister through the crowd, her stomach twisting each time she caught a glimpse of Lily's haunted expression. Just before the ceremony, Sophie spotted something that nearly made her drop the tray. Lily was leaning against a corner pillar outside the bridal suite, gripping the railing as if she might collapse. Her makeup artist hovered beside her, touching up her foundation. But Sophie could see the truth. There was a bruise beneath the flowers and glitter. A fresh one. Whatever had happened behind closed doors the night before, Lily was carrying it down the aisle. When the ceremony began, violins filled the chapel with a shimmering melody. Guests rose, smiling as Lily walked toward Victor, her steps small and fragile. She kept her eyes forward, never glancing at the crowd, never making eye contact with her mother, who watched from the front row, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath her daughter's satin gown. As the officiant spoke, Lily's hands shook so violently that Victor clasped them between his own, disguising the gesture as affection. "You're doing great," he whispered without breaking his smile, but his tone carried a warning. Lily swallowed hard. When it was time for her vows, Lily's voice cracked, quiet, shaky, barely more than a whisper. She looked like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing one wrong movement would send her plummeting. Victor delivered his vows with polished confidence, promising devotion and protection, words that might have sounded sincere if Sophie hadn't seen the message behind his eyes. "You belong to me." Completely. After the ceremony, the reception began in a candlelit lodge decorated with white roses and gold accents. The air smelled of pine and expensive perfume. Guests laughed, drank, and danced under crystal chandeliers. Photographers captured every moment, but none of their cameras were pointed at the small, private interaction where Lily pulled aside a server and whispered, "Can I borrow your phone?" The answer was no. The server had been instructed not to hand anything to the bride directly. Victor had planned for that. He planned for everything. But he didn't plan for one thing, the bouquet. Tradition says a bride throws her bouquet to the women hoping to marry next. But Lily had prepared something different. When the time came, she stood at the top of the lodge's grand staircase. She clutched the flowers tightly, inhaled deeply, and tossed them behind her. A swirl of lace and petals filled the air, and the bouquet fell directly, suspiciously, into the arms of a disguised Sophie. Sophie froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Inside the flowers was a tiny folded slip of paper hidden between the stems. She tucked it into her pocket without hesitation. Later, in the quiet of a storage hallway, she unfolded it. 3 words. 3 words that made her blood run cold. USB. Violin case. Below it, in smaller trembling handwriting, "If I don't survive, give it to Rivers." That was the moment Sophie knew. This wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a countdown. A countdown to something Lily feared more than anything, becoming another one of Victor Hale's silent, forgotten wives. And as the music swelled and guests cheered, Lily stood beside her new husband with a brittle, frozen smile. On the outside, Aspen was hosting the wedding of the year. On the inside, a girl was screaming for help, and no one except her sister could hear it. The Maldives should have been paradise, white sand stretching like powdered sugar, turquoise waters glowing beneath the morning sun, and overwater villas swaying gently in the breeze. But for Lily Dawson, the moment the seaplane touched down at Azure Crest Resort, the world stopped feeling like a dream and started feeling like a trap. Victor Hale had chosen the most remote villa on the island, Villa 317, perched at the farthest edge of the resort, with its own private dock, plunge pool, and a single narrow pathway leading back to civilization. Advertised as the ultimate in honeymoon privacy, It served a very different purpose for Victor: total isolation. Staff later recalled the expression on Lily's face as she stepped onto the dock. Not awe, not excitement. Fear. A deep, bone-level tremor she tried desperately to hide behind a fragile smile. The first night confirmed everything she had been dreading. At 2:54 a.m., a barefoot Lily sprinted across the sand, the moonlight catching the shimmer of her nightgown as she ran. Cameras caught her stumbling, screaming something no audio system could capture. Before she reached the resort's main lit path, two of Victor's personal security men, who had no business being on private honeymoon property, grabbed her and dragged her back toward the villa. Guests heard nothing. On the island, money can silence even the loudest cries. By sunrise, Victor and Lily appeared at breakfast. Victor wore sunglasses and a relaxed linen shirt. Lily wore long sleeves in humid weather and smiled with the quiet stillness of someone who had given up resisting, for the moment. The staff noticed details they were too afraid to report. Lily's trembling hands, the faint wince each time Victor brushed her arm, the way she kept glancing toward the housekeeping station as if searching for an opportunity. But under Victor's watchful eye, no one dared intervene. Her one chance came the following afternoon, when a young housekeeper, Anna, a 19-year-old from Sri Lanka, entered Villa 317 to replenish towels. Lily seized the opportunity. While Victor showered, Lily whispered urgently, "Can I borrow your phone? Please. Just one call." Anna hesitated, glancing toward the closed bathroom door. She slipped her phone into Lily's shaking hands. Lily dialed her sister, Sophie. Her voice was barely audible. "He found something on my phone. Documents, files. Sophie, he knows. He's talking about cleaning up loose ends. I don't think I—" A crash in the bathroom. Lily froze. The call cut off. Within the hour, Anna was reassigned to another island property. No explanation. No goodbye. By July 14th, staff noticed a series of strange deliveries to Villa 317. Industrial cleaning solvents, waterproof sheeting, and diving equipment. The items made no sense for a honeymooning couple. But everything around Victor carried an unspoken rule: don't ask questions. Evening approached. The island shifted into its slow idyll. Couples posing for sunset photos, waiters lighting lanterns, the ocean softening into a dark mirror. But in Villa 317, something was happening behind closed doors. Cameras near the northern dock captured unusual boat activity. A private vessel, unregistered to the resort, approached quietly under moonlight. Two men boarded the villa. Lights inside flickered. At 11:50 p.m., a blackout hit Villa 317 alone. At 2:30 a.m., Victor's security team was seen loading several heavy bags onto the unregistered boat. The vessel disappeared into the darkness. No passengers. No explanations. Victor reported Lily missing 36 hours later. He claimed she went for a midnight swim. But the island told a different story. When Detective Claire Rivers arrived days later, the villa still smelled faintly of bleach despite a full guest turnover ordered by Victor's private team. Claire's forensic team found evidence the cleaners had missed: blood in the shower drain, broken nails embedded in the bed frame, bruising on the wall consistent with someone being pinned, and a torn scrap from Lily's dress behind the nightstand. Most damning of all, a vial of sedatives in the villa's safe with Victor's partial fingerprints. As investigators pieced together the timeline, it became clear Lily had been fighting for her life until the very end. Her final confirmed sighting was at 7:42 p.m. when she entered the resort's beachfront cafe alone, a rare moment away from Victor. She borrowed a waitress's phone and made one final call to Sophie. "He knows about the files," she whispered. "All of it. The girls, the islands. Sophie, if anything happens." Static. Then silence. That was the last time anyone heard Lily Dawson's voice. Hours later, currents beneath the dock churned unnaturally. A diver's flashlight flickered faintly in the deep before vanishing. Lily's body was never recovered, but she had not died powerless. Her violin case, hidden back home, contained a USB drive documenting everything: financial records, surveillance footage, tracking logs, even a grainy video of Victor threatening another young woman. She knew she wouldn't escape the island, so she made sure her evidence would. The Maldives honeymoon wasn't a love story, it was a countdown. And by the time Victor Hale realized he'd underestimated the girl he thought he could own, Lily had already set the trap that would destroy his empire. Her last act wasn't fear. It was defiance. Detective Naomi Rivers stepped off the small transport boat and onto the dock of Azure Crest Resort with the calm intensity of someone who had spent her entire career staring down the worst men money could protect. The Maldivian sun beat down on her shoulders, heat rising in shimmering waves, but Naomi barely noticed. She'd learned long ago that predators didn't only lurk in dark alleys. They often hid behind marble walls, designer suits, and polished charity speeches. And if the initial reports were true, Victor Hale fit that profile a little too well. From the moment Naomi entered Villa 317, the air felt wrong. Too sterile, too quiet, too clean. Honeymoon suites usually smelled like coconut lotion and sea breeze. This one smelled like bleach. The resort claimed they had freshened the villa for the next guests. Naomi knew better. Fresh paint streaked the wall behind the bed, subtle but visible under certain angles. The baseboards were newly scrubbed. Furniture had been moved. The cleaning was too thorough, too eager. She ran a gloved hand across the dresser. Nothing. No dust. No stray hair. No fingerprints. That alone told her something had happened here. The luminol tests told her the rest. Under UV light, faint arcs of blue revealed a truth bleach couldn't erase. Blood spatter on the lower wall, near the bathroom entrance. Whoever cleaned the room didn't realize that blood sinks into micro grooves in wood. Naomi crouched. The pattern looked like a struggle. Someone reaching out, falling, being dragged. The shower drain told an even darker story. Her forensic tech pulled out a small wad of tangled strands, unmistakably long and chestnut brown. Lily's color. Next came the fingernail. It was wedged so deep beneath the bedside carpet that the cleaners had missed it. A single acrylic nail with a thin crescent of skin cells trapped underneath. Skin that would later match Victor Hale. Still, Naomi needed more than suspicion. She needed a thread, something in this villa Lily had left behind. Victims always try, Naomi knew. Even when they don't think they can escape, they try to leave something. A notebook on the nightstand seemed ordinary, but Naomi flipped through it anyway. Blank pages. Nothing. Then instinct made her tilt the top page sideways, under UV. Indented impressions from a note torn out hastily. Storage Unit 23, Miami. Her breath tightened. That was it, the breadcrumb. Lily had been trying to leave a trail long before she vanished beneath the Indian Ocean. The investigation exploded open when Naomi interviewed the staff. Fear coated every interaction. Employees hesitated before speaking, glancing over their shoulders, voices low. A bartender confessed he'd seen Victor arguing with Lily earlier in the week, but begged Naomi not to quote him. A massage therapist whispered that Lily had bruises she couldn't explain. A beach attendant murmured. She kept looking back at the villa like someone was chasing her. Every story fit together like broken pieces of a puzzle. Then came the crucial witness, a young waitress named Amara Rashid, the last person to see Lily alive. "She borrowed my phone," Amara said, hands shaking. She was terrified. She said someone was going to hurt her. "Did you hear who?" Naomi pressed. Amara swallowed hard. Her husband. Within hours of that call, Amara had been transferred off the island without explanation. The resort claimed it was routine. Naomi knew it was to silence her. But silence had a way of cracking. When Naomi pulled the security logs, she found what she expected. Tampering. Missing footage. Corrupted files. Cameras coincidentally malfunctioning during key hours. Classic signs of cover-up. But Victor's team hadn't counted on one thing. They didn't wipe the service entrance camera. Footage showed two unknown men carrying heavy duffel bags out of Villa 317 at 2:30 a.m., loading them onto an unregistered boat, then disappearing into open water. Victor's defense about a midnight swim collapsed immediately. Then came the phone data. Lily's broken phone, retrieved from a resort trash bin miles from the villa, still contained fragments of deleted files. Photos of documents from Victor's office, screenshots of bank transfers, even a blurred picture of an island room with restraints bolted to the wall. Pieces of an empire built on silence. Pieces Lily had tried desperately to expose. But the biggest breakthrough didn't come from the island. It came from Sophie. Naomi flew back to Tennessee with a notebook clue in mind. Sophie met her with tears, exhaustion, and a fierce determination only a twin sister could feel. Lily was preparing, Sophie said. She knew he was going to kill her. She just didn't know when. Sophie led Naomi to the attic of their childhood home, to an old violin case Lily had loved since she was a kid. Inside wasn't a violin. Inside was truth. A USB drive, a burner phone, typed notes, handwritten dates, photos, videos, voice recordings of Victor threatening other women, screenshots of flight logs to private islands, and most damning, an audio clip of Victor saying, "If she runs, we make it look like an accident." You know the procedures. Lily had been collecting evidence for months, piece by piece, even as her world shrank around her. Even as she knew this plan might cost her life. Naomi closed the violin case slowly. "This isn't a missing person investigation anymore," she said. "This is murder." And with Lily's final act of bravery, Naomi finally had everything she needed to bring down a man who had believed he was untouchable. Victor Hale had hunted his victims in the shadows. But Lily Dawson left a map, and Naomi Rivers was about to follow it straight to him. The courtroom was packed long before the doors opened. Reporters lined the marble steps, cameras flashed like lightning, and people who had never met Lily Dawson held handmade signs with her name written across them. It wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. A showdown between a billionaire who had built an empire on fear, manipulation, and silence, and the young woman who refused to die quietly. When Victor Hale entered the courtroom flanked by federal marshals, he looked nothing like the polished titan the world once admired. His designer suits had been replaced with a plain gray detention uniform. His hair, once meticulously groomed, was thinning and unkempt. But the arrogance, that chilling, unshakable self-confidence, still clung to him like a second skin. He didn't scan the crowd. He didn't look remorseful. He looked annoyed, as if his arrest and international disgrace were merely inconveniences he expected to resolve with a well-placed check. That illusion shattered the moment the prosecution began. Assistant U.S. Attorney Dana Whitlock stepped forward, her voice steady and cutting through the tension like a blade. "This is not a case about one missing woman," she said. "This is about decades of violence hidden beneath wealth. This is about dozens of girls who disappeared, who were silenced, who were buried under non-disclosure agreements, offshore accounts, and manufactured accidents. Today, we speak for all of them." She turned toward the defense table. "And we speak for the last one, Lily Dawson, the woman who refused to stay silent, even when it cost her everything." The jury leaned in. So did the world. The prosecution's case unfolded like a slow, merciless unmasking of Victor's empire. First came the digital forensics. GPS data placing Victor at Villa 317 during the critical hours. Security logs showing camera failures timed too perfectly. Deleted files recovered from Lily's broken phone. Evidence of offshore transfers tied to hush money and trafficking rings. Then came the physical evidence. Lily's blood in the shower drain. A fingernail lodged in the carpet with Victor's DNA. Broken furniture with skin cells embedded in splintered wood. Sedatives in the villa's safe bearing Victor's partial fingerprint. Piece by piece, the image became unmistakably clear. But the testimony, that was what broke the courtroom open. Victor's former head of security was the first major witness. His voice trembled as he spoke, but the truth spilled out anyway, detailing the cleanup procedures, the divers hired for body disposal, the forged documents, and the years spent covering up accidents involving young women who had crossed Victor. He told us, the man said, gripping the witness stand, "If they talk, they disappear." And we made them disappear. A collective gasp filled the room. Next came the women who survived, those who escaped Victor's orbit but never healed from it. Their faces weren't shown to the jury, but their voices shook the walls. "He told me no one would believe me," one whispered. "He said he owned me," another said. "I watched him destroy lives like it meant nothing." Their testimonies were harrowing, each story echoing the same pattern of grooming, coercion, isolation, and fear. But then came Sophie Dawson. Lily's twin walked to the stand holding the violin case that had once belonged to them both. The entire courtroom fell silent. Even Victor, for the first time, looked up, his jaw tightening. Sophie placed the case gently beside her. "My sister fought for every breath she had," she told the jury. "She didn't run because she was afraid. She stayed because she wanted to expose him. She gathered evidence, knowing she wouldn't survive to see justice. Everything she did to protect others." She opened the violin case. Inside were the USB drive, the forbidden photos, the threat recordings, the financial logs, the notes Lily wrote in shaking handwriting. "This," Sophie said, her voice breaking, "is the truth Victor Hale was willing to kill for." Even the judge's expression softened with heartbreak. The defense tried to spin Lily as unstable, someone overwhelmed by marriage, someone who fled on her own or suffered an accident. They implied the evidence was circumstantial, the witnesses unreliable, the recordings taken out of context. But the forensic pathologist destroyed that narrative in a single hour. He explained bruising patterns consistent with restraint. He showed how the blood evidence aligned with violent struggle. He described pressure marks on the broken furniture consistent with someone being pinned. He testified that the physical evidence pointed not to an accident, but to deliberate harm. And then came Victor's own undoing. The audio clip Lily had recorded on the private island. Victor's voice, cold, calculating, unmistakable. "If she runs, we make it look like an accident. You know the procedures." People in the courtroom audibly gasped. That was the moment the trial ended. Everything after that was formality. The jury deliberated for only 5 hours. They returned with a sweeping verdict. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, human trafficking, kidnapping, conspiracy, destruction of evidence, financial crimes, international criminal conduct. Judge Miriam Keller stared down at Victor with a steadiness that shook him more than the verdict. "You believed wealth made you untouchable," she said. "You believed no one would ever see the truth. But Lily Dawson saw you. She exposed you. And now, you will spend the rest of your life in a cell smaller than the world you tried to cage her in." She sentenced him to life without parole plus 175 years. Victor didn't speak, didn't blink, didn't flinch. For the first time, the man who had controlled everything controlled nothing. But the story didn't end with the verdict. Congress passed Lily's law, creating new protections for victims of wealth-enabled abuse. Hotels worldwide adopted new reporting protocols. Hundreds of cold cases reopened. The Emily Project, now renamed the Lily Foundation, became a nationwide force for justice. And in Franklin, Tennessee, a memorial garden bloomed with white lilies. At its center stood a plaque. Lily Dawson. She didn't die in silence. She made the world listen. Her voice had echoed across oceans, across courts, across nations, and will never fade.